call to order this meeting of the Citizen Review Subcommittee. Ms. Stickles, would you please call the roll?
Rodriguez,
Present.
Harmon Threet,
Present.
Walker, Keeble,
Present.
Turner.
Present.
With a quorum present, the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I did have one correction that I wanted to add to the minutes. In the summary of the discussion on, when I introduced the idea of Joe Trotter presenting, I also outlined the directions of harm reduction, some of the things, the key tenets that it aims to attain. And I'd like to read those back. I'll also email so that we can update the minutes to reflect that. What I said was, as an approach, harm reduction does four things. First, it asserts the voices of drug users and those with a history of drug use, that they ought to be central in deliberations and programs and policies that are designed to serve them. Number two, that harm reduction affirms drug users as the primary agents of reducing harms of their drug use. Number three, recognizes the realities of poverty, class, racism, social isolation, past trauma, sex-based discrimination, and other social inequalities that affect people's vulnerability and capacity for effectively dealing with drug-related harm. And then finally, number four, harm reduction does not attempt to minimize or ignore the real and tragic harm and danger associated with illicit and illicit drug use. Thank you. Any additional corrections to the minutes? Okay, excellent. I now need a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on Wednesday, September 11th, 2019.
I so move with the amendment.
I second the motion.
Excellent. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Excellent. The motion passes. We now have an opportunity for correspondence and announcements. And as I understand, commissioners would like to take this opportunity to follow up on with correspondence and some announcements. Start with Commissioner Threet.
Oh, no, you can start with Commissioner.
Commissioner Keeble.
Sure. I'd like to preface my comments with a reminder of the timeline of the Citizen Review Subcommittee. While we were officially formed in June of 2017, we did not handle our first complaint until May 31st of 2018. This entire process is in its infancy, and I expect and anticipate that we're going to have some early challenges and even mistakes along the way. However, I did not imagine that the public pushback to our work would come directly from a city council member that was a contributing author to the ordinance and subsequently voted that ordinance into existence. So with that in mind, I want to begin by reviewing the first purpose of the ordinance, and that's found in section 2-532. In here it lists 4 reasons for the establishment and purposes of the Citizen Review Subcommittee. Nope. And I will wait to review that section in the closing comments.
It does set us up nicely for Commissioner Threet, I believe.
Yes, I actually had a question about the previous minutes that Commissioner Rodriguez mentioned. In those minutes, we were supposed to have a presentation tonight. Why did that? I was not here for that meeting. Why is that presentation not happening?
City staff met with the Public Health Department, and they indicated that the better venue would be the Community Coalition. And so that presentation was held at the Community Coalition.
Okay, because I thought the intent of the meeting, of them coming here was actually to review the specific tenets of the harm reduction new ordinance. It's an ordinance that is particularly dealing with the police and how the police handles particular members of our community.
And again, the Public Health Department, who was over that, indicated that they felt that they needed to be at the coalition.
Can I ask, or maybe we're already familiar with, but who the person is at the Public Health Department that made that recommendation or request?
Their executive director.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that's Julia Pride, is that correct?
Yep.
Any other additional announcements, correspondence? No. Okay, I did want to briefly add that I did request a written explanation from the city manager so that I could update the public on that because it was announced in a public meeting. I also wanted to share that with other commissioners so we could have something in writing, a more in-depth explanation of that. I also wanted to add that I was pleased to see that harm reduction specialist Joe Trotter did get an opportunity to present at the Community Coalition just an hour or so ago. He got about 5 minutes. He did discuss his coalition, our partnership to reduce opiate mortality and promote training, that is PROMPT. So that is a ongoing coalition that serves to reduce harm in our community for drug users. I also wanted to talk about the inspiration for why we chose to schedule that. That had been, I had met with Joe Trotter in August, and the original inspiration for me coming and talking to Joe to begin with was my ride-alongs. On one of those, I was on one of my ride-alongs, I witnessed an overdose. It was a seasoned officer that responded, and that experience stuck with me for the entire year since that time. It was very clear that it was one of the more weighty and emotional tasks that police officers have to deal with. So that is one reason why I wanted to have that presentation here. I also want to note that harm reduction is a necessary topic for the Citizen Review Subcommittee because substance dependency shapes community and police relations. Drug users are, of course, a hard-to-reach and underserved population. And as we know, the Champaign police officers are often the first to reach a victim after an overdose. An estimated 22,000 Champaign County residents struggle with opioid use disorder. Approximately half of prison and jail inmates meet the DSM-5 criteria for substance abuse or dependence, and significant percentages of state and federal prisoners committed the act that they are incarcerated for while under the influence of drugs. Data from a national study in 5 major American cities shows that at the time of the arrest, 63% to 83% of arrestees had drugs in their system. Between the year 2000 and 2013, the percentage of arrestees with opioids in their system was significant. There were significant percentages of arrestees with opiates in their system, and it increased, with significant increases in the opiate presence, as well as other methamphetamines. Death by overdose is the most common cause of death for those returning to life after incarceration. So while I really would have liked that presentation to continue, of course, and I know that we will continue to schedule informational presentations up until the City Council restricts us by amending the ordinance to prohibit that from happening. Any additional comments or announcements? Okay, excellent. We can now move to our audience participation portion of our meeting. Thank you for being here or tuning in online. This is an opportunity for attendees to make statements that pertain to the business of the Citizen Review Subcommittee. If you'd like to address the subcommittee, please approach the podium and state your name and address. For the sake of time, please do not exceed 5 minutes.
Hello again, my name is Emily Close. I live in Champaign. Could I get the overhead, please?
We'll restart the time.
Where'd it go? Okay. So congratulations. I know that you became a member of this NACO in July. I printed this off at the library today, so congratulations. The reason I printed it off was because the name of the organization, National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, I think that would be a good name when you go before the council. to talk about the ordinance. I think it would be interesting to ask them if you could change the name, because in my opinion, your name doesn't mean anything to most people. There's nothing in there about, you need the word police or law enforcement, something to indicate what you're doing. Like in Urbana, it's the Civilian Police Review Board. Could you be the Civilian Police Subcommittee or Civilian Police Review Subcommittee? I think that's worth asking if you're under the umbrella of NACO. Second, the complaint that I believe you're going to be finishing up tonight was filed at the beginning of May. So now, 6.5 months later, I still haven't heard anything from the chief of police. No resolution. So I started coming to these meetings at the beginning of May. So again, your time frame for me seems like to infinity and beyond. I only get 30 days, according to the city, to file a complaint. And even though it says that you're supposed to be wrapping things up in about 45 days, unless the chief needs some extra time, if I'm doubling 45 days, that's 90 days, that's 3 months. That's not 6.5 months with almost no communication from the city about what's going on. I have communicated a little bit with Lieutenant Ramsayer, but I feel like he's in a bit of a quandary because he needs to get information from you guys, and it sounds like you're kind of waiting to see what Chief Cobb is going to do about your recommendations. So I'm the one stuck in the middle. I'm the citizen. I'm the one that's getting the raw end of the deal here, as I've gotten it before when I had to wait for months and months and months for my complaint, which was 1804. So some other things I've communicated with the chair and Lieutenant Ramsayer about. This is the fact sheet I got in the mail from Lieutenant Ramsayer for this most recent complaint. It says right on there that I'm required to sign a affidavit. It says there. I have filed 3 complaints. I've never signed an affidavit. So how are we going to handle the fact that, in my opinion, the police seem to be breaking the ordinance or breaking the law? How are you going to handle that? I don't think that's just an oversight. I think there's a serious problem here with the process and the documentation of that process. It doesn't match. It doesn't work. Another big problem. This is on the second page of that complaint sheet that I received. And please note, this is for my 3rd complaint that I'm still receiving this out-of-date fact sheet. It only lists 4 possibilities, 4 possible outcomes. But on their website, and I was just there again today, there's 5 possibilities. Misconduct noted. That's not on the fact sheet that you're sending me. So what are the choices when someone's looking at that? Are they looking at 5 choices or 4 choices? Why doesn't what's on the city website match the documents that are being sent out to citizens? And why is it up to me, very detail-oriented and yes, a little obsessive-compulsive, why is it my job to point that out? And why should it take months for that to be noted? And even now, I don't think it's corrected. So there have been 4 complaints, I think, filed since mine this year. Are they getting the old fact sheet, or are they getting the one that's on the website? I mean, these are pretty serious problems I really hope that you can address.
I wanted to briefly speak to some of those. First, the delay in the response to that complaint was by no fault of Champaign Police Department or city staff. This was because the commissioners wanted additional information.
Madam Chair, could we have a point of order?
Yes.
I don't know if it's proper for you to respond directly to the questions or concerns of the citizens. So maybe since legal is here, they can speak to that.
These are typically issues handled in closed session, and also this is not the time for a colloquy. This is a time for citizens to just make statements and for you to hear them. Typically, we do not do that.
Yes, typically.
Bonding.
Yes, the norms of our meetings, though, are up to the chair. So briefly, I just wanted to complete, and then we can move forward. The affidavit, I actually do have the complaint form with me that you can file at the police station, and it is at the very bottom here, I believe, correcting that the affidavit is signed. Yes, there's a digital form. And then could we get additional information on the choosing of the name that was mentioned? Or do we have that information? The selection
I'm
of the
sorry,
name?
I wasn't hearing you.
The Citizen Review Subcommittee, so our title. Ms. Close brought that up, and I was curious, is there any background information on how our name was selected?
It was in the report to council. It was just determined to be a I mean, that was the form that council voted on, to be a subcommittee of the Human Relations Commission, and that's the name council settled on.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, any additional comments or public participation? Okay. Seeing none, we are now ready for committee member comments. This is an opportunity for commissioners to state comments for the public interest that pertain to the purpose of the subcommittee. This may include recommendations for outreach, upcoming events, news items, and other opportunities. As I understand, commissioners wanted the opportunity to discuss the aims of the subcommittee as listed in the ordinance. Per the city's handbook on commissions and boards, I thought I would remind everyone, boards and commissions enjoy a special jurisdiction and scopes of authority as provided by the city ordinance. That advisory power is dependent on the enabling legislation. These bodies do not set policy. Bodies like ours do not set policy. But rather, we act as a collective citizen sounding board in the policy process. With that, do we have any commissioner comments?
Sure.
Commissioner Keeble.
I'd like to begin by apologizing for beginning with my closing comments. But it really was a puzzling experience for me to read the criticism of the public criticism of the ordinance. And I'm wondering if there's some misunderstanding going on here. Because when I read the ordinance, it seems very clear to me. So I wanted to just address the first letter. I'm in section 2-532, letter A. And it states that the subcommittee is established for the following purpose: to promote public confidence in the professionalism and accountability of the City of Champaign's Police Department through unbiased review of the investigation of citizen complaints and thoughtful policy recommendations and ongoing public outreach. So the ordinance lists public outreach in section 2-534. Public outreach is a qualification for membership on this subcommittee. That's stated in letter D. Members must be willing to play an active role in the community by publicizing the citizen complaint process and, whenever possible, providing appropriate outreach to the community. So we've been asked to reach out to the public. That has been explicitly stated in the ordinance. In 2016, late 2016, the Police Complaint Working Group explicitly recommended that the responsibilities of the subcommittee should include public outreach, public education, and civic engagement. That we should also work closely with the Community Relations Office in carrying out those responsibilities. In July of 2017, the city manager's explanation of the ordinance explicitly identifies two advantages to this requirement. One, it has a potential to give citizen complaint investigations greater credibility than completely internal reviews can provide, as well as the potential to reassure the public that citizen complaint investigations are both thorough and fair as advantages to the current formation. The second advantage stated was that the forming of our subcommittee would require public outreach, education, and policy recommendations, thus allowing for the implementation of a model of citizen review which is tailored to the specific needs of the Champaign community. Public outreach and education allows the Citizen Review Subcommittee to perform as a mechanism for the review of citizen complaints in a thoughtful, meaningful, and consistent manner. And it's for these reasons that the subcommittee members are required to periodically attend neighborhood, community, and other special meetings to further our education efforts. Thank you.
Additional commissioner comments? Commissioner Threet?
I'd like to follow up with the second task that this that precipitated the formation of this subcommittee, which was to add a citizen perspective to the evaluation of citizen complaints. For over 40 years, community organizations such as the NAACP and the Urban League have desired a citizen review board. The seeds planted so long ago finally bore fruit when a working group was created in April of 2016 after study session 2016-022, when the City Council reviewed the complaint process and ultimately directed the Chief of Police to form a working group to perform a more in-depth study of the topic of citizen review. This police complaint working group carefully considered the needs of the community, the history of the police, and effective citizen review boards in other cities over the course of 10 public meetings before making their recommendation to the City Council during study session 2017-004. The City Council ultimately requested that the CRS contain 5 members, which was a change from the original proposal of 3 members, with the specific goal of, quote, having a diverse committee with broad perspective, and the increase in representatives allows for additional members to represent the community. The recommendations of the police working group and the City Council revisions were codified in the original and the ordinance creating the CRS in 2017 and was unanimously approved by Council members Stock, Pianfetti, Kiles, Foreman, Gladney, Beck, Bruno, and Mayor Finan, all who voted to adopt the finalized draft. As part of the creating of CRS, the working group insisted that the subcommittee should make their recommendations to the Chief of Police prior to an investigative finding from the Lieutenant of Professional Standards. This provides the Chief of Police with another perspective to consider in rendering decisions about citizen complaints. The specific contents of the ordinance are Section 2-533 and 534 of the ordinance, which details the composition of the CRS and qualifications of the members. The members must meet to serve. For composition, the Citizen Review Subcommittee shall be a subcommittee of the Human Relations Commission and shall consist of 5 members. The mayor may appoint members of the subcommittee. At least 1 member shall be a member of the Human Relations Commission. The other members may be from the community. After the initial appointments for staggered terms, subsequent members shall serve a 3-year term. Section 2-534, qualifications for membership. All members must possess a reputation of fairness, integrity, and a sense of public service. No current elected official or city employee may serve on the subcommittee. C, the appointments shall reflect community diversity, including different neighborhoods, income levels, ethnicity, age, gender, and experience. D, members must be willing to play an active role in the community by publicizing the citizen complaint process and, whenever possible, providing appropriate outreach to the community. This process, which was quite a labor of love for this community, was drafted really to demonstrate the commitment of our community to citizen oversight of the police.
Excellent. Additional commissioner comments? Commissioner Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to be covering and reviewing the task 3 of the ordinance, which is Section 2532C. And it states that us as a subcommittee is to provide a timely and fair objective review of the citizens' complaints and the manner in which they are investigated. And so the structure and responsibilities of the CRS were chosen as a compromise. The city manager's report noted that some citizens wanted and would continue to advocate for a review board that would be, that would investigate totally independent from the police department. Instead, the working group advocated for a system with checks and balances. The goal was to ensure the review board retained its independence, but also built upon and enhances the police department's existing processes. The CRS reviews the findings and the investigation into the police complaint and issues recommendations on the conclusions to the chief of police. As an extension of the HRC, the CRS also possesses subpoena power. This is to ensure that the CRS has access to the information it needs to make a meaningful recommendation. CRS commissioners undergo hours of specialized training on the CPD policies before serving. And Section 2535 also explains that the community relations manager, in coordination with the chief of police, shall develop written standards for orientation, training, and continued education for the subcommittee members. All appointees must complete the initial training and orientation before the first formally convened meeting. Training may include police ride-alongs and firearm simulator trainings, which we've all done. And all members must sign a confidentiality and non-disclosure form. CRS commissioners also are required to continue that education by attending, as already previously stated, community events and engaging in community outreach. Section 2534 states that to qualify to serve on the CRS, members must be willing to play an active role in the community by publicizing the citizens' complaint process and, whenever possible, providing the appropriate outreach to the community, in addition to participating in other CRS initiatives. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. Any additional commissioner comments?
So with regard to the 4 recommendations put forward, I would like to believe that the work being done by the CRS is done in good faith and with good intention. But I have to admit that this has been a frustrating process for all stakeholders, including citizens who come here meeting after meeting, sharing their concerns and asking questions that we're restrained from answering and or engaging in any dialogue. While I understand how some of the recommendations put forward test legal and policy challenges and or changes, there is one in particular of the recommendations that seems like an easy fix, and that is the 30-day time frame for which to file a complaint. When we presented this to Chief Cobbs, the rationale for this policy was, and I quote, "because it's always been that way." One expressed concern by some for extending the complaint filing time was the storage, keeping, and availability of police body camera, availability of police body camera footage. My counter argument to that concern was that police investigations have not always relied on the availability of camera footage and police body camera footage in particular. If that's the justification for or the unwillingness to move forward on that recommendation itself, then we discount the camera footage that may be obtained from the complainant themselves who may be recording the police. We discount the witness or businesses that may obtain available video that extend beyond the storage policy of the police department. And if I may cite the case of Walter Scott, That's a nationally known case. A witness recorded him being shot in the back by police. In the case of Philandro Castile, his girlfriend in the passenger seat recorded his shooting in interaction with the police. Sandra Bland, she recorded her interaction and arrest with the police. We also discount the credibility of witness testimony, and we discount the obstructions that may prevent witnesses from meeting that 30-day deadline that include being in jail, being in prison, being hospitalized, being traumatized, and those who don't live in this community and out of state, and may not be familiar with the process and time constraints for which to file a police complaint. Further, the lack of video could also be a benefit or exonerate the defendant if there is no corroborating, if there's no corroboration of any said allegation towards police officers. My point is this: the recommendations shouldn't be red tape to improve our process, but it should be in direct conversations with all stakeholders to promote inclusiveness. Pretty soon, as we all know, there will be a council study session to review the function of all boards and commissions, and I welcome that. There should be a periodic evaluation of the work that we do and other boards and commissions do. But this comes on the heels of controversy surrounding our recommendations, and I can only hope that it's not a concerted effort to delegitimize them, but instead open up that conversation and communication among stakeholders to understand one another, and even in disagreement, come to common ground in the best interest of public service. And I hope that when the ordinance is reviewed and cross-checked with the public record, it shows no digression between the two related to our charge. I pride myself in serving on this commission and subcommittee, and I do so with sincerity, seriousness, and selflessness. In my genuine effort, I'm not serving one side or the other, and certainly not interested in the partisan or divisive politics. With regard to all the recommendations, I don't know how accurate the reporting is, but the notion that by putting them forward, that the subcommittee is trying to, and I quote, tell the chief of police how to do his job is misguided and an impairment to the intent of our work. We have some talented, skilled, experienced, highly regarded leadership employed by the city of Champaign, and Chief Cobb is among the elite of those. I observe and acknowledge his progression through the ranks of law enforcement in both the city of Champaign and ultimately as chief of police his progression through the city ranks of the city of Urbana, and ultimately his position now and role as chief of police of Champaign. So there's no question in my mind in his ability to do his job and do it well. There's also no question that the formation of this subcommittee is a new element to his role and may pose some challenges, as it has for all of us. I have full confidence in Chief Cobb's commitment to enhancing this process and doing so within the parameters of the law, department policy, and while also maintaining the confidence of the officers that serve under him. And within the mission and vision and the guiding principles of the police department. And let me highlight some of those areas that seem pertinent here. On the police website, you'll see that it says to serve the public through unconditional respect and collaborative efforts with the community. To serve with honesty, transparent and inclusive government. To serve with commitment to fostering positive police-citizen partnerships. To serve through trust, integrity, and respect, and to building trust by working in partnership with the community and working collaboratively with the department. Finally, I would like to say, as a subcommittee member, there are some things that we can do better. Communication and responsiveness will be central to the effectiveness of our work. As an HRC representative of this subcommittee, I think it is proper to advise, consult, and get direction from the HRC and allowing them to advise council. I myself may have misstepped in acting as the liaison to ensure that they are privy to questions, concerns, and challenges. I will be meeting with and discussing how we enhance the communication between HRC and CRS with Chair Young or during our regularly scheduled meetings, and what that looks like, including adding perhaps a CRS report to the HRC agenda, or having closed session to discuss any confidential issues related to CRS. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. Before we move to adjourn to a closed session, I just want to remind everyone that our next meeting is on January 8th at 5:30 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. We may now move to adjourn to a closed session to consider the performance of a specific employee of the city, followed by adjournment. For those following along, the second half of our meeting is closed to the public because we are reviewing the findings of an ongoing investigation. With audience and committee member comments completed, I now move that we adjourn to a closed session.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded. Without objection, we are adjourned.